Welcome to the Become Who You Are podcast, a production of the John Paul II Renewal Center. I am so grateful to have Jamie McAleer with me today. We almost didn't make it, right, Jamie? We had some technical
I know.
difficulties, but anyways, you're with me, so it's good to have you all the way from Alabama.
That's right.
So what is the heat like? And I'm from Chicago, Jamie. It's been a hot, but I heard there's heat running across the nation, right?
It's pretty warm here. We're in the early low 90s.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty
You got a
warm.
little humidity down there too, right?
We do. We got some humidity.
Good to have you with us. So there's so much I related to in your book. I will come to you. A story of adoption, the relentless love of God. Let me just tell our audience a little bit about you before we dive in. She grew up as a Lutheran, and wasn't until college that she first accepted Jesus into her heart. It was then that she met her husband Jack. I like that name, and converted to Catholicism. Both
Goodness.
Jamie and Jack were major players in the growth of Krispy Kreme dynasty, are the financiers behind 4 p.m. Media. They're also on the board members of Legatus and the Franciscan University at Steubenville. Jamie and Jack live in Alabama. They have 3 children and 13 grandchildren. So those kids are busy. It's awesome.
That's right.
Jamie,
Yes.
you tell a wonderful story here, and the importance of stories you bring out in the book. Family stories, personal stories, passing them down to shape the lives of children and grandchildren. And so it's really a wonderful way to start. And you tell the story, it really touched my heart. You downsized, and you'll have to tell us a little bit about that. And you found this dusty box underneath the bed. And so, but before you get into it, let me just tell you a little bit about the sword behind me. It's a claymore sword. It's a big sword, Jamie, and it's an apostolate within our apostolate at the John Paul II Renewal Center that reaches out to young men, especially Gen Z men who are searching. That's why I think your story is going to touch even young men's hearts. And so we have a lot of them joining us, and of course the young women that love them and the family members that love them. And this podcast will go out to our general audience as well. But it's so many young people joining us, and I think this story that you're telling, not only adoption of a child, but being adopted children of God, is going to resonate. Let's tell a little bit about that dusty box, and a little bit about downsizing and how that came about.
Well, my mom had passed away. This was back in
Mm,
2016. Um, we knew she had cancer, but it just
mm.
all happened very quickly. And I didn't have a chance to ask her more things. You think you have time. You think you have the chance to ask your mom or your dad or someone you love, tell me some stories or help me remember this story. But all of a sudden, she was intubated and she never spoke again. So my chance was gone and I learned a lot. So,
No,
COVID,
no. When that happened to her, she couldn't speak anymore. That was
it was
that was
done.
part that was
It was
part of that.
over.
Wow.
I sat with her for days and weeks, but she couldn't speak. And
That has to be so frustrating for a person, huh? Not to
it
be able
was
to
for me
speak.
too. It
I
was
bet you.
hard.
Oh my God.
But COVID came, and we had time. So my Jack and I had kept a journal through our adoption. And one of my, the things on your many lists, I wanted to get it down. I wanted to go back through it and write it down so Alex knew some of the stories behind the adoption. And so my son-in-law, Philip, sat with me for many hours. And I say it all in the book that, we went through it and he helped me get it down. He's a writer. And, he guided me and encouraged me. And so we got a good start. And then other folks happened. I just kept working at it because I just wanted him especially to know. And, anytime I would mention to folks that we had an adopted child or just little comments like that, they always seemed interested, especially him being from Russia. That's quite I'm not sure how many people make it to Russia in their lifetimes, but I never thought I would, but I
Yeah,
did.
you mentioned in the book that, when you grew up, you're probably similar in age to me. And I never ask a woman how old she is, but I'm getting up there. And I was born in the 50s, and you go through the sexual revolution, but it's always the Cold War was going on too, and you mentioned, and Russia was the enemy.
That's right.
And you mentioned I
Very.
never thought I was going to go to Russia. That's for
It
sure.
was not on my list.
Not on your bucket list, Jamie, huh?
No, it was a beautiful country and the people were wonderful. But they had a war going on then,
Mm,
at the time in the early '90s, kinda
yeah,
like they
they
do
did.
now.
Yeah. Well, it was, 89 was when the Berlin Wall came down, and that started to crumble. There was a lot of
Right,
turmoil then. I just want to back up a little bit because something that really touched me, and I think it's important for our audience, especially for our young people, to remember, to journal some of the stuff that happens. Journaling is not like to me, it's not a diary.
right.
Journaling is, and I'm not saying this is exactly what you did, but I'm just saying in general, journaling is important because these important things that happen in your life that move your heart, it's important to write them down because as you bring out so well in your storytelling is that sometimes you have to look back. You have to look back at your experiences. You have to look back at things that happen in order to piece that together and that see that God is working in your life even when he doesn't seem like it. He's always going to take, and you really touch me because as you're telling the story, you see yourself in it so often, and because this is your story, but it's our story. And especially stories of being adopted children of God. And before I forget, too, tell that story, that the forward that Father Dave put in there about adoption, the importance in Roman law. Do you remember that? So,
Yes.
anyways, I gotta back off and let you tell your story. But I didn't
Oh,
want you to forget. When you grabbed that box, you looked at these little red shoes, and I grabbed the box of my kids when I downsized. So I'll just tell you this. So I downsized about 4 or 5 years ago, and I pulled out these boxes, and I sat on the floor just like you, and you start looking through it, and ooh, it aches, right? So that's when
yes.
you say, I got to tell the story, right? And you start thinking about the book. So,
That's true. Yeah, we're kinda jumping all over, but that's okay because it was much later. We were at the house that we had downsized from. It was a bigger home. Anyway, we used to have, guests come, and they would stay with us. We were involved in our Catholic radio, and we were involved in a lot of things like you mentioned, but Mike Aquilina came, and he was gonna speak on the radio, but he stayed with us, and he was talking to us about I mean, we had shared we have 2 daughters, and our son is amazing, but he's, adopted from Russia, and
so
Mike,
you had two, just for our audience, you had two natural, two daughters.
yes, but he started talking about, adoption and what a beautiful thing it is and how in Roman law, when Jesus came, adopted children were prized, that a Roman could give up a biological child at any time, just disown them. But you could never give up a child you had adopted because you had chosen that child. So it was, whether it was legal or whatever, you could not give up your adopted child. They were more precious than the biological
Yeah,
children,
no,
which
that was actually Roman law from my
yeah,
understanding.
I didn't
Yeah.
agree. I mean, I love my daughters, but I love my son too. It's just two different ways. But I
But
think
in the Roman law, what it says, and I think this is the beauty of the link you made with God, is that I chose you. I chose you. You could have not chosen in Roman law, right, to adopt that child.
that's right.
And I guess they thought biological children. Look at, I didn't know, I didn't have to choose you. Maybe you just came about somehow.
Right. That's
But with
right.
adoption, nope. You made that decision. You knew what you were doing, whether you did or not. You knew what you were doing, and now Roman law protects that child. And this is such a beautiful story because you talk about and we see in Romans and Galatians about this adoption of God adopting us, and God chose us. Of course, He chose us to bring us into the world, but then when we get baptized, ooh, we're adopted again. Well, I know I'm just trying to open this up to the audience so they get a feel.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about writing it,
Well, it's true. Alex is, when we adopted him, he was almost 5. He's now
wow,
35. So all those years, 30 years, try at first I could tell him the stork dropped him off in the wrong spot. We had to go get him and that was great. But then, we had to be realistic and explain. And he remembered, I know he remembered, but he says he doesn't remember, but Anyway, so then we had to talk about adoption and what a beautiful thing it is and how much, how we're all adopted. I realized that again later on, as we're all baptized. We're all baptized into Christ and we become children of God and we're all, adopted in that way. So just trying to help him understand what a beautiful thing it is and what a beautiful thing it is in our faith so that he just feels so good about it.
So you have two natural daughters pretty quickly, but then you're getting to this point where you were talked about being a young girl. And when you grew up, that you had your parents there with you, but there was a certain joy that you were missing. Like, ooh, we all do that. I certainly did. My parents were arguing, and we were always ducking from plates being thrown and stuff. And you want something more. And I speak to a lot of women in what I do, and a lot of young girls, and they grow up with this dream, right, of being a princess. I have eight grandchildren, and most of them are girls, and they all went through this phase of dressing up as princesses, and they have this dream of the knight in shining armor going to pick them up, and they're going to go out, and you mentioned this, like on an adventure. This adventure called life, and it's supposed to be full of joy. And so many people don't even have fathers, grow up without this experience. So take us then. You have two girls, and how did you decide then to adopt at that point?
Well, we were in North Carolina and Jack was with Krispy Kreme and I was 30. My friends were having a third child. I thought I could have a third child. So we began trying and it just wasn't working. So doctors helped us and, after some testing said, it doesn't look like it will happen for you. And so then, I did think about adoption, but we had two children already, so we were low on a list for domestic, which I totally understood. Again, this was now, the early 90s, and children were being adopted from Romania or China or lots of different countries, Eastern Europe countries, and Russia had just opened up and they had established a link with our diocese in Charlotte, North Carolina, Catholic Social Services. So the article came in my Catholic News and Herald and talked about this new relationship. And there was going to be a meeting in Hickory, North Carolina, and anybody who was interested in helping a child come. So, for me, it was just like so easy. It was like it landed at my front door. And so we did. We were some of the first to go to Russia from North Carolina. So we were the second to go. But before we got to go, we went through a lot just with the process of all the paperwork. And then I had a issue with my paperwork and we were actually denied. But then our Blessed Mother, in my belief and opinion, interceded for us. And we got to go. We got to go get Alex. So it was quite a story.
Yeah, when you're going to adopt someone from, say, Russia, do you have the information on that person? Then do they send you? What is that process? Because you said Alex was 5,
Well, he
and
looked
so
3, but he was 5. He was almost 5. He turned 5 when in April, right after, soon after he got here. But
so that's not a little infant, and so you knew that ahead of time. Do you know his story, his backdrop on that? Does he, isn't
not
that
much.
something?
They didn't have many records.
Wow.
But it was easier for the Russians to place the babies as it is here in the US, within their country. So it was the children, it was the a little bit older children that they were looking to place, to find homes for. So there were, quite a number of children they were looking to place. And we had little or no information on him, but we did receive a picture, which was a precious picture of him
Yeah.
being held by one of the mamas. And he looked wonderful and adorable. And um, yeah, that's all we knew. He was blonde, blue eyed, and he loved to sing. That's what we were told.
And that's some. So tell us a little bit about that experience of that journey into Russia, and maybe seeing Alex for the first time. What was that like?
It was unbelievable. It was a movie because, Russia was very different 1994 and they were again involved in a war. We were a bit We were very anxious. We brought our 2 girls with us, so that made us even more
Wow.
anxious.
Wow, wow, wow.
We wanted them with us to understand and to see. They were old enough. They were 10 and 7, so we wanted them to be a part of this process. But our contact, Svetlana, was amazing. She was gorgeous. She looked like Mrs. Claus, and she was waiting for us in the Russian airport, in the Moscow airport, and they were travel agents, and they realized, that when Russia opened up and there were so many children, and they realized that Europeans were interested in adopting some of these children, that they kind of went into that business too.
Okay.
Russians were finally free. They could make money, they could do things, they could travel. It was a whole new world, but they were excellent travel agents. So they took us all over the place in Moscow. We went to the ballet, the Russian ballet and the Russian circus and all the beautiful sights, but they were there for us the whole way. They were really wonderful. But it was still, we stayed at a huge, one of the 7 ugly sisters in Moscow that Stalin had created, and it was the Epiphany. It was Russian Christmas, and
What did you call it? The seven what?
he built
The hotel.
7 hotels, and they were called the 7 Ugly Sisters because they were very gothic. And
That's the communist way, huh? So you meet Alex. I mean, does he understand this process or what's going to happen? Does he?
yes.
Yeah. So
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
we were told by our guides, our by Svetlana and her crew, that the children in the orphanage were told that their parents would one day come back for them. So he
Oh,
knew when we got there. We had sent him ahead of time
wow.
a Winnie the Pooh bear and pictures of us, and so he knew we were coming, and he knew that we were his parents. That's what he was told. So
Wow,
he
I just
believed
got
it.
goosebumps. What a beautiful thing. I mean, that's
Yes.
really a beautiful thing. Now he doesn't speak English
No, not at this point.
and
No,
you
and
don't
I hadn't
speak
really thought
Russian
about that.
and you don't speak Russian, right? And so what's that like? It's like I'm sure you just want to, pour out these words, but I'm sure the body language spoke for you. And tell us a little bit about your faith, what you're feeling at this time and how you're praying at this time because you walk into talk about an adventure, Jamie. You walked into an adventure, didn't you?
We did. And there are some highs and lows in my story. I'm pretty honest, but honesty is helpful. But it was, yeah, it was a bit frightening, but he was ready. But it helped so much to have our daughters with us. He wasn't just him with Jack and I, it was him with Lauren and
See,
Jennifer.
yeah. Sometimes
And
those kids are pretty good at bridging the gap, aren't they?
yeah, he did everything they did. He didn't want to get a bath, but they got in the bathtub, so he got in the bathtub, and he ate everything they ate or tried it at least. And, it just helped so much to have them there. I mean, Jennifer was just 2.5 years older than him, so he felt right at home.
Yeah, see, what a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And you get them home, and at that point, who starts learning the other language? I'm sure you're going to start to teach him English, and he's probably picking it up a little bit, right? They're
He's
good at that
smart.
age, at least.
He's so smart and savvy. So, yeah, no, he did great. And our Catholic schools were great. They accepted him. He went to preschool, and, he just had some catching up to do. And, he was always probably a little behind, but, he had lost almost 5 years.
Yeah, he did.
He didn't know a lot.
We're going to ask you to join us by helping us get the word out. So if you can make sure you subscribe and then hit like, no matter which platform you're on. Remember that the Become Who You Are podcast is on audio, on any music or podcast app. We're up on Rumble, YouTube. You can find us on X. When you do subscribe, hit the like button. A couple things to share with people. Love Ed. Love Ed is just such an important apostolate. So it's within our apostolate, the John Paul II Renewal Center. This helps parents give the talk to their children. We're trying to push back on all these gender ideologies and the porn culture, and give children the truth and do it through their parents, and we help them do that. The other one is really taken off too. It's Claymore Militus Christi. Soldiers for Christ. That's where you see the sword behind me. That's the big sword. That's our logo for Claymore. That's a Claymore sword. And this is for young people, especially young men, Gen Z, high school, all the way through. Let's call it till they're 30 years old or so. They're starting to really understand that something nefarious, sounds very toxic, is going on in the culture. And so they're stepping into the church and we're discipling them. So we want to help get the word out about those things. And lastly, consider financially supporting us. Everything's in the show notes. Hey, God bless you. Thanks again. We're right back to today's show.
So, but he caught up fast, and everybody was so great and helpful, but it was hard.
As you're speaking about that, and we mentioned the Cold War in Russia already, and you thinking that maybe that you'd never go to Russia for anything, right? They were the enemy, but you think about the beauty of the people.
Mhm.
I always think of St. Paul with his, in Ephesians 6, Jamie. We're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against the powers, the principalities, and the rulers of this age, and we know from Our Lady of Fatima that Russia was going to spread her ears, but this is the rulers. This is the power. And underneath that are real human beings that desire to love and to be loved.
Right.
We have to remember that, don't we, Jamie? That all over the world are these people, human beings, and especially the children, that are looking for mom and dad.
Yes. They're looking for love and joy, just as
Mm,
I was. I agree with you. And the Russian people we met were wonderful. Um,
yeah.
they, you know, Svetlana, our contact, her daughter Jenny, beautiful young Russian woman, probably 28, engaged to be married. And anyway, she was with us a lot because she spoke English beautifully. But she picked up Alexander as we were saying goodbye at the airport when all was said and done, and she told him how lucky he was to be going to America. He called it my America, but America. It's true. We are so blessed in this country. I do hope we all
I
realize how
We
blessed
don't
we
all
are.
realize it, unfortunately, and we can get into that.
Yeah,
We'd spent a lot of work on we call stolen innocence and what they're doing to our children right underneath our noses in these schools and
right.
different things with the sexualization for kids and blah 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 blah. But of my four grandparents, three of them were orphans, and they came to the United States, and they didn't
That's
speak
cool.
English.
Yeah.
And you're right. This
Yeah.
nation embraced them all.
Yes, sir.
They found the love, and they found ways to raise families, and et cetera, et cetera. So we can tell this love story. And my grandmother from Poland,
Hmm.
Jamie, brought the Catholic faith, and she's the
That's
one
cool.
that spread this little mustard seed to all of us.
That's
And
cool.
as I was reading parts of your story, and especially that desire as a young child, right, to find that something more. It sounds like you found that knight in shining armor, by the way, Jack. And I want to hear a little bit about his story. But as we're going through this, we have to just keep our eyes open, and it's God who does that. So tell us just a little bit about this faith journey, and God gets us through this, and how you start to tell us a little bit about how you start to link this story to your own story, to the story of your dreams, and also to God, who
Okay.
always seems to bring good out of evil, doesn't he?
Well, like I said, I was raised Protestant, and when I met Jack, I was still Protestant. I had one sister, but Jack came from a large Catholic family. There were seven of them, and his parents, his dad, they were very devout. They came from families of 10. There's so many family members here in Mobile and Fairhope, which is why we moved here in our later
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with Jack the minute I saw him, and it took me a while to get him to feel the same way. So I hung out with all his friends, and they were all Catholic. And every Sunday they went to mass, no matter what they were doing, whether it was morning mass or afternoon late, the last mass on Sunday. And I went with them. And the first time I ever went to a Catholic church was with him at Auburn, and I can still remember I was amazed at how they all knew what to do, and they all went up and received something, and I could not because I was not Catholic. So I knew I was missing out. So fast forward, we are married right after college. And it took me a while to become Catholic just because of our life. We moved to North
Hmm.
Carolina and but I did. I've loved it ever since. I still love going up and receiving the Eucharist. I watch everybody. It's just amazing to watch them, everyone, go up and receive Jesus. It just is the most beautiful part. But anyway, when we were going through our adoption, we were actually denied by the United States government. Our application was turned down, and it's all in the story. So we were supposed to leave in like 2 to 3 weeks to go get Alex, but we were denied. So we went on to
You were
Mobile.
denied what? Just to travel?
We were denied our application. Our application was denied. We were denied the right to adopt him,
Mm.
something that had happened, and it's all there. But anyway, we went to Mobile for Christmas like we had planned, and I was a basket case because I was just stunned. And his family knew it, and they were kind and gracious, didn't ask a ton of questions, but try not to get emotional. But one of the mornings there, his mom came and found me. And his mom, I love his mom. She's in heaven, but she had this quiet faith, and she came and she knocked on the door of the bathroom where I was hiding. And she brought me two holy cards, and I think those were the first holy cards I had received ever. She said she wanted me to have them. I really don't remember what she said, but I remember one of the cards was this. I don't even remember that other card, but the card I remember was a prayer to our Blessed Mother, lovely lady dressed in blue. It was a prayer she had kind of grown up with Archbishop Fulton Sheen.
Yeah.
And it's a story, it's the
It's
prayer
one of
of,
my favorites, huh?
yes, our
Bishop
Blessed
Sheep.
Mother and the Son. God was your little boy, and so you know the way. And so for me, it was just like, I was on the floor of the bathroom praying this prayer that she'd given me. And it was all I had. It was the only hope I had that this adoption could happen. And so we went home, and a few days later, we got a call that we had been approved. Our denial had been reversed, and we were free to go get Alexander. So all our plane fare, everything we had, plane tickets, everything we'd set up, our visas, they were all ready to go. And we had 1 week.
Wow.
We did, and I give her credit forever that she made it happen.
Prayer, sometimes we say a prayer. We don't realize that's what we do. People will ask me sometimes, Jamie, where is God and all this, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, we are to make God visible in the world. And how do we do that, right? We're sacramental. We are these embodied souls, and we reach out to God, and look at, we get it. It's not always easy, right? To feel the confidence that God really has Jack and Jamie and all our listeners, and he can count the hair on your head, but it's true. And that's why the story that you're telling, and all our stories, when we share that with kids, like you said, and grandkids, those are the stories. See, as you go through and you can make those links, those connections, like you just did, you go, wow, God really, He's the one that's going to bring me on this adventure as a young boy, as a young girl. You want the adventure. You know it's going to be a battle. I mean, those are the three core things of a man, right? He knows life's supposed to be an adventure. He knows it's supposed to be a battle. That's where the sword comes from. And the third thing is it's for beauty, and especially the beauty of love, the beauty of creation, but the beauty of love. And so God is the adventurer. He's the one that set this thing up. He's the one that will take us on the big adventure. And that's what you're doing, Jamie. You're connecting your story of your life to the larger story, and it's just beautiful, right?
If
It's
we're
beautiful.
open, that
Yeah.
we're not
Uh, uh,
always open.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's a very important point that you're making. God sometimes is dinging, right? He's sometimes dinging at you, but you make that point early on.
Well, it's hard to be adventurous. I'm not the most adventurous person, but I am always seeking love, joy, chaos, what
Yes.
I didn't have, what I always
Mm,
wanted.
mm.
we have a pretty chaotic life. We with our all our kids and grandkids here, so it's pretty busy, but it's a lot of fun. I do you. It's easier. It's hard to be open to the adventures of life. They can be scary. They can be expensive. Children are expensive, but they're
Yes,
the
they are.
best gift
Yes,
in the
they are.
whole world.
They
I'm close
are.
to my children and my grandchildren. That's my greatest joy. But that's why I share my story, because I long for people to be open. Father Dave Pavanka, who wrote the foreword for my book, he's a very close friend, dear friend, but he tells the most beautiful stories and very personal stories. He taught me to tell my story because he does. He tells in my foreword, he tells a beautiful story of his own. His dad was adopted, which is quite remarkable.
Yes, it
But it
is.
it was more common years ago. There were more children to be adopted.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
we didn't abort them all,
right,
did
that's a
we?
whole nother
And yeah, no,
topic.
that is true. That is, but the point being that when a child is brought, no matter how that child is conceived, there are people out there. God has people ready to take them, and if you give him a chance, like you just said earlier. But you have to be open to this. This is very difficult. I've gone through this with young. I used to be a professional chef years ago, and I had a lot of restaurants and things. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that before we run out of time with your franchise. But anyways, I had a lot of young women working for me, and they would get, some of them got pregnant, and some of them had those babies. And I can tell you this, that the ones that did, some blessings. It was just like you said, very, very difficult for them. Some of them were only 17 years old, et cetera, et cetera. And they took that chance for some reason, right, on life. And it worked out, at the end. Beautiful stories, but we have to be able to have this faith. When we make a disconnection from faith, we live in chaos, but we don't know how to regroup. God always gives us those ways to regroup, to come back into this story, or at least to understand that He has a larger story, and our life is participating in this. But if we don't see the larger story, Jamie, sometimes we can't find our way back. And you see this, and you see so many children today. 43% of every child born in the United States today is born out of wedlock. And they don't know their fathers. You made this point. It stuck with me. And again, I didn't get the whole book because it wasn't published yet when we're having this interview, but I was able to read parts of it. And you made that point in there that not everybody has this opportunity to have a father, because you relate a story. You say there's two things I really remember about my dad, and you related a couple things in there. And when you were telling it, you said not everybody has the chance to do this. These simple things that we're talking about, right? And fathers get really busy, and moms get really busy, and sometimes they don't have the time for you that you think. And when you look back at your life, the beauty of it, we can forgive them. We can forgive our parents, and vice versa. And God does that, doesn't He, Jamie? He's the one who gives us the power to do that.
It's true. Because, well, yeah, sometimes we don't even know what they went through. Like my own mom,
Mm,
I didn't know so many of her stories, or they had been mentioned, when I was little or in passing, and I didn't remember. I wish I
yeah.
did. I wish I knew more.
Yeah, and I think that's the gift. I remember one time that when we were little boys, I'm the oldest of five boys. When we were just three of us, and we were really young, my mom got married when she was 18. She thought she was gonna, get rescued. Long story there too. And anyways, my dad's a professional chef. He's gone all the time. She's got three little boys. She's only 21 years old, and she goes, I'm sure I saw her crying by a counter one day. And I look up at her, and I just saw her looking down at me crying. And I was a young boy. And looking back, it took me many years to look back for what you just said, Jamie, and say, my mom sometimes was angry with us. She would even leave for a week or two at a time. And we got, upset and confused. But looking back, I go, she had these dreams. And now she's coming to the conclusion that she might be just stuck with a bunch of little boys with no husband because he's working all the time, right? A professional chef sometimes is working all day and all
True,
night. And man, we need Jesus, don't we? For all these times, we really do.
true. It's true. He's there.
Yeah. Tell us about the Krispy Kreme. Was it your father-in-law that actually started that?
No, he had Vernon Rudolph started it,
Okay.
but Jack's dad, Joe, was one of the first franchisers. He was an early franchiser. He had them in Mobile and Birmingham and in Alabama. So his Jack and all of his siblings grew up in the donut business.
Mm,
They worked, all of them worked in the store. Jack made the donuts, his brother Mac. And so anyway, but Vernon Rudolph died and the company went into other hands and it went up for sale. So Jack's dad and some other franchisers purchased it. And his dad, the part of the deal was his dad went up to run it for a few years to get it back on track. And we went with him because we were just out of college. We were free. So that's how we landed in North Carolina. Um,
okay.
and
And
it's a
so
great,
so your husband Jack was working for them, right? And so he was gone a lot
he's
too,
gone a
wasn't
lot.
he? Yeah.
They were,
That's
Chris,
not easy for a woman. Let's talk just a little bit about that, Jamie. A lot of times, you'll look when I'm speaking to people, they feel this ache, right? I wanted something more. I wanted joy. So how do we get through this? How did you get through that? Because again, you go, I wish everybody was just here for dinner every night, and I wish everybody didn't have to work so much, and I wish my husband, would listen to me, and I wish my wife doesn't she hear what I'm saying? And we have these we're just imperfect, and the only way I think to overcome that, I know now, it's just you got to open your heart up to Christ and to his blessed mother and to our angels and saints and all these people God sends and our neighbors and our friends and our family members, and start to look at them with the eyes that God did, and to hear their story, right? To understand what they're going through. Listen to them, right?
right. That's right. Hear the story. I love hearing people's stories. Sometimes it makes me feel better. Sometimes
Yeah.
I learn things.
Well, how about your grandchildren now? Do they all live near you?
They do. They
See
all live
what
near
how
us.
lucky are you? So now they're gonna be able to read this book, hear all these stories, and they're gonna know something about you and about each other
Right.
that they didn't know before. Right? What a
Right.
blessing!
That's right.
What kind of ages are they? Those grandchildren,
The
from where to
oldest is
where?
17, and we actually have 15 because two are in the womb. So we have 13 running around.
Okay,
The
yeah,
youngest is two of
okay,
those, then two come in. And then I have some in heaven, which I totally believe, and I know they're waiting for me. And I look forward to meeting them one day. But
yes,
yeah, they're
yes.
a lot of fun. I tell them stories and they listen.
Mm,
One of my stories is that when I was growing up, I would ask my father, who had a funny sense of humor, I'd ask him, where my mom was, and he would always say, well, she got mad and left. So I would tell some of my grandkids, the older ones, this.
Now, how old were you when the story you just related?
I was many ages. It was the story I often got, I most of the time got.
Wait, now what happened to your mom then?
Well, she died, when she was, 86. But I mean, she was never mad or left. That's just what he would say to us. And he just was trying to be funny. I didn't really think it was funny,
No,
but as you got older, you kind of came to expect it. But it was just a different era. World War II. It was just different. But that's how
yeah.
they had grown up. But I've told my grandkids this, and so now my teenage grandsons, they're 13, 14, and 15. But every so often I'll say, "Well, where is your mom?" And one of them will say, "Oh, she got mad and left." And I just
Is
love it.
isn't
I
it?
just feel like they've heard me. They are interested. They remember.
Yes, yes.
It's just fun. It's just so much fun to share things with them and open their minds, to beyond what their life is like, which is cell phones and social
Mm.
media. And I want them to know that, there's a lot more.
Yeah. So let's just, as we've got a few minutes left here. Let's just talk about that a little bit. Are you able to are they all part of the Catholic faith, or can
Oh,
I even
yes.
ask that? Yes.
Oh, yes.
Are you able to, how do they react to the faith? Again, in this time of cell phones and social media, are you able to, any secrets there, or anything? Because, again, we have parents listening that are always looking for ways to make a connection with those kids through our stories, through, and Jesus is a storyteller, isn't he? He loves to tell stories, and this will be my last point. I'll throw back in your lap, is that these are timeless. When you speak about the truth,
Yeah.
you're speaking about timeless stories, stories that, as you mentioned in the book, that they have power. When you take the truth, you put it into a story, you personally witness to it. Ooh, it has power, doesn't it, Jamie?
It does. It does. It does. Yet another story one day I longed to tell was, Jack was busy in Krispy Kreme and we had a youth minister come to our parish. Jack found him because Jack grew up with youth ministry and he loved it. And that's where his faith comes from. So he wanted it for his children. So he brought this youth minister and his family. His name is John Beaulieu, John and Lisa. They came to our parish and they rocked our world, at least mine. That was part of our faith journey. So anyway, youth ministry became crucial to my children. They loved it. They grew up with youth ministry all through their middle school, high school, and then they went to college. Some of them went to Franciscan University of Steubenville, which is where John came from. And so anyway, one son-in-law was a youth minister for a while, and my other son-in-law is head of theology at the local Catholic high school. And then
Oh,
Alex,
wonderful.
son, actually works for EWTN.
Alex does?
And
Isn't
he's
that
the one who
wild?
had the contact for me to publish this book. It was all his idea. So if anybody ever wonders what he thinks about it, it was all his idea. He said, I know someone, Devin Jones, who works with EWTN, who works there. And he said, send it to him. So I did. So
Uh,
that's where we are. I feel good about that Alex wanted to share his story. So everybody's doing great. So the kids are all very, I mean, they're on their own journey, the grandkids, but, you know, they see it and that's just the way they're raised. They're raised to go to mass and youth group and,
yeah.
love the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about Alex? I mean, is there any reason, or does he have any inkling to know any more about Russia as a country, or, that kind of thing? Does that matter as they get older?
Oh, yes, he's very proud. He's savvy. He does all the media for EW, a lot of the media for EWTN.
We'll have to meet him one day. Yeah. I'll have to get him on the
Yes,
show. Yeah.
yes, he would love that. A media
Well, look,
specialist.
invite him for me, will you? Ping him
I
for
will.
me, and
I will.
just
I'll
say,
see him
hey,
today.
yeah, I would love to put kind of a part two on this show, Jamie.
But so he's looked 23andMe, Ancestry.com to see, but I just don't know. I mean, nothing so far has ever happened, no connection. But their second child is a little girl. Their little 2-year-old son is named Simon, and their daughter is planned. The name has been given to us as Anastasia, which is a good Russian
Okay,
name
yeah.
and a saint name too. Good Russian
Yes.
one. So he's
Yes.
very proud. He'd love to take his wife Laura there. It's just, it's got to be the right time for them.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's a lot
yeah.
going on there now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on everywhere in the world, and that's why, hey, it's such a joy to have you today, Jamie. And when you look around the world, you can get discouraged, and a lot of times, right? There's a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness. But even though historically we may be in unprecedented times, but these wars and these battles and the craziness has been going on ever since history began, right away from the garden in Eden. The answer is still Jesus Christ, for us, isn't it? If you want to solve the problems of the world, that's the two great commandments, love God, let him pour into you, and then go out and love each other. And if you don't do those things, the chaos just continues. So God bless you. Thank you so
I don't
much.
like
And
chaos, but it's
no,
he's
yeah,
the way, the
yeah,
truth, and the life.
it is. It is. So tell us where can we get the book and where's the best place to buy it?
It's on EWTN, their site, Sophia Press, their
Okay.
site, and they're connected. And
Okay.
then you can get it on Amazon, but I think that's a little bit after. I think, I know
Okay.
they'd
So
love
it's ready then.
I think it's coming.
Okay.
I don't know if they've been sent out yet. I don't have one yet.
Well, we can pre-order if not. So
Yes, I want
Amazon,
you to pre-order
we can go to Sophia,
or
EWTN.
mhm.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing the story. And I'm going to say goodbye to everybody here. Thanks for joining us today. But you hang on, Jamie, just for a
Okay.
minute, will you?
Yes.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.